Okay, so Sleepy Joe slept through the signing of a $1.2 trillion U.S. spending bill, courtesy of our friends at Reuters. President Joe Biden on Saturday signed into law a $1.2 trillion spending package, keeping the U.S. government funded through a fiscal year that began 6 months ago. I didn't even know that. I guess like the school year. Does it start like September or October?
Yeah,
The fiscal year? I didn't know that. Biden described the package, which Congress overwhelmingly passed in the early hours of Saturday, as investing in Americans, as well as strengthening the economy and national security. The Democratic president urged Congress to pass other bills stuck in the legislative chambers. You guys are like a flock of lemurs. The House must pass the bipartisan. You're moving sideways on this. You got to pass the bipartisan national security supplemental to invest our national security interests, Biden said in a statement. And Congress must pass the bipartisan border security agreement, toughest and fairest for in decades. It's going to pay dividends for generations to come. It's time to get this done. Come on, man. The Democratic majority Senate passed the spending bill with a 74-24 vote. Key federal agencies, including the Departments of Homeland Security, Justice, State, and Treasury, which houses the Internal Revenue Service, will remain funded through September 30th. Yeah, no, that's not that is a country that is really qualified to lead the world, one that every few months has a crisis about whether or not it's going to pay its bills.
Yeah.
But the measure did not include funding for mostly military aid to Ukraine, Taiwan, or Israel, which are included in a different Senate-passed bill that the Republican-led House of Representatives has ignored. The business community okay, so this, I only kept this in because it's such an example of corporate media propaganda. All right, so listen to these next two paragraphs. The business community welcomed the passage of the spending bill and committed to continue working with policymakers to advance legislation that would enhance tax breaks for businesses, wait for it, and low-income families. Oh, thank God we have business going to bat for low-income families. They're such good guys and gals over there. Quote, a fully operational U.S. government provides important stability for American businesses, workers, and families, Business Roundtable CEO Joshua Bolten said in a statement. We look forward to continuing to work with members of Congress to advance sound policies, including the Tax Relief for American Families and Workers Act. Yeah, that's what they're working with Congress on. That's their primary focus there. I love how Reuters included that with no pushback and without telling you what tax cuts for businesses they're lobbying for. Right. That they don't talk about. They let them just speak for themselves. While Congress got the job done, deep partisan divides were on display again, as well as bitter disagreement with the House's narrow and fractious Republican majority. Conservative firebrand Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene threatened to force a vote to remove Speaker Mike Johnson, a fellow Republican, for allowing the measure to pass. The 1,012-page bill provides $886 billion in funding for the Defense Department, including a raise for U.S. troops. Don't you feel safer? I feel safer already, Keith. Yeah. Johnson, as he has done more than 60 times since succeeding his ousted predecessor, Kevin McCarthy, in October, relied on a parliamentary maneuver on Friday to bypass hardliners within his own party, allowing the measure to pass by a 286 to 134 vote that had substantially more Democratic support than Republican. Isn't that the way the last guy got whacked?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fun.
Where the fuck do you get the balls?
Exactly. That's actually a recording of Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah, right.
That's what she said to him. For most of the past 6 months, the government was funded with 4 short-term stopgap measures, a sign of the repeated brinksmanship that ratings agencies have warned could hurt the creditworthiness of a federal government that has nearly $34.6 trillion in debt. Quote, this legislation is truly a national security bill. 70% of the funding in this package is for our national defense, including investments that strengthen our military readiness and industrial base, provide pay and benefit increases for our brave service members, and support our closest allies, said Republican Senator Susan Collins, one of the main negotiators. Opponents cast the bill as too expensive. It's reckless. It leads to inflation. It's a direct vote to steal your paycheck, said Senator Rand Paul, part of a band of Republicans who generally oppose most spending bills. It really tells me how out of touch these people are, whether Republican or Democrat. Wow, 70% of funding is for national defense in a country where the infrastructure is collapsing, you have runaway inflation, you have a student debt crisis. Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. No, you're really doing the business of the American people.
It's actually a little more. Yeah, I thought her math was a little, because $886 billion out of $1.2 trillion, that's about 74%. But
that's 74% of national
I don't mean to
defense.
nitpick. I don't mean to nitpick, but when you're talking about a figure north of $1 trillion, every percentage point is what? What's that? 100 million, something like that. It all adds up pretty quickly.
Enough to send everyone to college for free.
Exactly. Yes.
Enough to solve homelessness.
Exactly.
Okay, so on Face the Nation, what's the congressman's name here? McCall.
This is McCall.
This is McCall. All right, so he's saying that they made a backroom deal to bring the separate bill for Ukraine and Israel to the floor, which is why Marjorie Taylor Greene brought up the article to vacate the seat, which she is saying it's a threat. She's not bringing it up now. She's not going to push it yet, but she's holding it out there in case he decides to follow through with this.
On Ukraine aid, given that they are running out of Speaker Johnson, given you any timeline for a vote on Ukraine aid, given that they are running out of ammunition?
His commitment is to put it on the floor after Easter, and we are working on this bill.
So as soon as you all come back April 9th?
I would like to be done as soon as possible. I think the situation in Ukraine is dire. The front lines we can't, if we lose in Ukraine like Afghanistan and lose to Putin, let him, take over Ukraine and Moldova, Georgia, and abandon our allies like we did in Afghanistan. Does that make the United States weaker or stronger?
Well,
I think weaker.
Why isn't there that sense of urgency on the speaker's part? I mean, respectfully, this has been stuck in the House for weeks. You have been warning about this and needs to be acted on.
He understands this. He is in a very difficult spot. And this, motion to vacate the chair thing.
It's a very difficult spot because, unfortunately, our base isn't too keen on the idea of being incinerated alive in a nuclear war. And so that kind of puts us in a tough position because we don't give a shit. We're full-on psychos. We're just willing to push this till the end. Armageddon time, baby. The people that these politicians represent have their reservations. They wonder, why are we fighting World War III over Ukraine? It's really unfortunate that he's in a bind that way.
98% of the nation's preppers are in our party, but that only constitutes 0.08% of the party. It's not enough to move the needle towards Armageddon.
Right. And even they're preppers because they feel they have to be, not because they want to be. Yeah, they'd rather society move on.
I believe he's committed because he understands national security. He leans on, myself, the chairman of Armed Services, House Intelligence, for advice on this, and he knows how important this is.
See, this is the power. Once again, I mean, it's nothing new, but this is the power of that force the vote tactic. Yep. I mean, he says he has a deal moving forward. Well, now, because that's gotten out there, whether it's true or not, who knows? Maybe this guy's trying to force his hand in some way. We don't know that. We're not privy to those conversations or that inside
information.
Johnson
has not himself agreed to this publicly.
Right. We haven't heard this from the man himself. But you can bet that because this fucking guy went on TV and blurted this out, he's going to hear it. He's going to hear threats of removal. You're going to have another speaker get taken out because they tried to cross the base on Ukraine. I mean, this is how it works. This is how you do it. This is how you keep the party in check. And in this instance, it has been the Republican base, oddly enough, who'd have thought it, that has at least thrown a wrench into the ever-churning gears of the war machine. I mean, they have. That's undeniable. It's undeniable. It's unthinkable that you could stop Ukraine funding, that you could stop war funding. But they've done it, at least for now.
Well, this is why, as somebody mentioned, friend of show Jimmy Dore said on his show, there is no left or right anymore. Who the fuck, like, you've got to, if you look at the more and more as we've become post-duopoly, if you recall, if you were involved in the Bernie movement, there were these old activists around who told us we were wasting our time. I don't know if you talk to people like that. I heard from people like that who were saying this is bullshit. The Democratic Party is just going to sheepdog you in. They're not going to do anything. They're just taking your reformist impulses and they're going to make you vote for their neoliberal candidates. And they were absolutely right. And this is definitely, if you see the evolution of a kind of post-duopoly philosophy, you wind up in the same place that these activists wind up. You have no loyalty to party. You have no loyalty to a politician. What you do is you scream at a politician in a movie theater and hope they'll use the word genocide. And it's a case-by-case basis. All right, today it's Marjorie Taylor Greene who has a good position. All right, let's push in that direction. Tomorrow it's Cori Bush. Fine, let's push in that direction. But loyalty, support, savior complex, that's all gone.
Please clap.